everyone. Welcome back. My name is Frida Weisel. I host a YouTube channel where I explore topics often related to Judaism, especially Hasidic Judaism. And today we are going to be discussing Kiryas Joel, which is a Hasidic village I grew up in. And I am joined by Shia Friedman, who also grew up there. And I'm hoping we'll get to hear about his life story as well as the experience from the male perspective growing up in a very gendered and special world. So welcome, Shia.
Yeah, welcome to you. I feel super honored. And although representing all the males in KJ is kind of like a big responsibility, I hope I don't upset anybody, but I'll share with you guys my perspective and hopefully only good things should come out of it.
Great. You know what? We try to tell our own stories. Everyone's stories are different. We're not talking for other people. You know, sometimes those of us who have the freedom to tell our stories are able, maybe have more experiences that might be more challenging, and that's okay. To me, it's like we tell our own stories, and some people will take away something valuable, and some people will not. It won't resonate, but you just speak for yourself. But I'm hoping that maybe your own story can reflect the male perspective, which is something that I know so little about, even though I come from the same world as you.
Right. Yeah, it's two totally different worlds. Probably growing up, as a girl in KJ is it's like a whole different world that you see. When I was a kid, I actually always thought, the girls have it so much better. They do plays and they have more trips and it's more fun. And then growing up, I heard no, it's actually a male society and we guys are the ones that are suppressed and you guys, everything is about you. And I was like, I always wanted to be in school. I didn't like going to Cheder and so yeah, let's talk.
Shia, we're gonna call you Shia, right?
Yeah, Frida.
Okay. You're almost 30 years old?
Yes, I am 28 and a half.
Okay. Where are you rushing? 28 and a half. So you were born which year?
97, actually September 11, 97. It was then a regular day, didn't have any meaning. I'm a twin, identical twin. So for me, it was a birthday. I was just born on September 11. It was just like September 12 back then.
Which number child are you?
I'm one of 10 and we are second and third.
The second and the third? Who's older?
I have a sister. My twin brother is older than me with 47 minutes.
47 minutes?
47 minutes, yeah.
So let's talk about your story and then we can talk about the overall experience. The distribution of male female in your family.
Yeah. It's 5 and 5. So I have 5 sisters and 5 brothers, yeah.
Uh-huh. Are you close to your twin brother?
Very, yeah. We speak every day. I have probably 3 missed calls from him as we speak.
Is it nice to have a twin?
I don't know what it's like not to have a twin brother. When I was in school, it's kind of competitive. And growing up, it was also, I think, emotionally hard because you have like an identity crisis because you're constantly competing with like someone that's your age, your sibling, and takes away a lot of your attention. Growing up in KJ can be hard from an identity perspective because, everybody, you kind of have to go with the program. But for me, I feel like it was even more complicated because not only didn't I have my own identity, it's kind of like shared my own identity with a brother. Growing up was pretty difficult, but once I hit my 20s, it was actually the best because we got so close and we always talk and we both got divorced. I got divorced a second time. And so it's nice to have somebody that I can trust and share and he knows everything about my life.
Are you very similar?
We're 100% identical for most people. So meaning if you see me on the street, you'll probably say hi and he'll look at you and he'll be like, I have no idea who you are. And I have it like 100 times a day.
He also doesn't have payas?
Yeah. I actually do have payas. I grew like tiny bit payas. I don't think he has this though.
I don't know that counts.
Okay.
I'm no one's Rachni's lady. I'm just kidding with you.
Yeah, people meet me all the time and they're like, Shlomi, and I'm actually not Shlomi. I don't mind that these days. It's nice. Yeah.
So you went to Satmar?
I went. It's funny. I think me and my brother are probably the only kids in Monroe that actually went to all 3 Satmars. So in Monroe, there's 3 different schools. Probably they're all the same religious and Hasidic, but they're under different leaders.
It would be interesting to compare our educational experiences, having grown up in the same village.
Yeah.
And yet having probably had very different education experiences since we were in the male-female divide. How long were your school days?
Depends on how old I was. So probably until I was 12, it was the 8 to 4 and then moved to 8 to 5. Between 12 and 16, it was probably most difficult because it started at 6 a.m.
You had to be in school already at 6
You had to wait for the bus, 6 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Then you finished at 6 in the evening. We had Fartuks, which is early, dawn. It was still dark outside in the winter. And then we prayed, which is another hour. Then you get probably 45
Fartuks
minutes.
is studying?
Yeah, you study.
school?
You're
you
at
sit
school,
down?
you study. It's dark
Is it
outside.
in the big hall?
No, depends what year, but no, sometimes it's in the classroom, sometimes in the big hall. Then you have a little break, 15 minutes, bathroom break or whatever, hachunas.
Really?
Yeah, of course. Oh, you don't even know that?
I know hachunas means bathroom break, but
Right. Oh, yeah, of
I
course.
didn't.
Oh, there's a whole line by the bathroom. Everybody waits because there's only 4 bathrooms for like 300 kids for some reason.
Which school? Let's name names.
No, this is, by the way, this is
Benaya?
every school is the same.
Got it.
It's all the same.
Okay.
Actually, I don't know. Then I was only in Benayo, and there's like 4 bathrooms for a couple hundred kids. So everybody waits for probably 200 kids. Okay, and then you go and you pray, and prayers probably also take an hour on the average because they pray very slow. And where would they rush anyway? And then you have like a 45-minute break for breakfast.
And they serve breakfast?
Yeah, so the school provides, yeah. Oh, by the way, which I have to say the story, when I was probably 8 or 9, our principal was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh.
So his name is Folkowitz. He's a super nice guy, such a nice guy. He's still actually principal there. And I remember when he became principal because the old one was from the old guard. And he came in, he got really close to the kids. And then he got diagnosed with cancer and he started making toast from bread for the whole school.
Why?
He was busy in the kitchen because I don't know if he thought that he's done or he wanted to walk out with a bang. But I remember, the reason I'm saying it is because we think kids don't remember certain things. Kids remember everything, especially if life is boring and it's repetitive and then something happens. The trip we went once a year, I probably was thinking about this for weeks before. But I remember that he started making toast and it was burnt bread, but we loved them. And then he disappeared from school for like a year and he came back without his payas and he had a wig. And he actually is doing very well. So that's breakfast. I remember that, which was so nice. Which was just so nice.
Oh, I also remember breakfast toast because there were the girls who were on diet. They'd bring whole wheat bread and it was so inedible. They had to have it toasted. So they all had to wait in line.
Oh, there was like one toaster.
Yeah, there was one.
Oh, we didn't have a toaster. That's a luxury. He did it in probably, I think, the big oven in the kitchen. He put it on a tray and he brought it out.
Sweet. So you had breakfast on.
Yeah, we had breakfast for probably an hour, and then we went back, into class from like probably 10 to 12 or 12:15. Then we had a little recess for like 15 minutes. I remember those bells, I hated it when I was so happy when it arrived. I remember sitting because I have ADHD, so I remember I was sitting sometimes in the classroom because I was bored out of my mind.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I was always bored. It was not stimulating for me. Like nothing was stimulating. I was literally looking at the clock, and then some teachers took off the clock, but I was going like
Why
for an
would
hour
they take off the clock?
because we were looking at it. I was looking at the clock like this, counting the seconds, and this is how I would burn my time, just like clock, and then just sometimes just looking at it for 15 minutes, just waiting and waiting and waiting. And then some teachers were good, like if you needed to use the bathroom, like pick up, and others would just ignore you, like keep it in there. Until recess. And they also had this like really corny joke that if you needed the bathroom, they were like, okay, this is probably normal. Did you go before? And you said, yeah. Well, then you don't need. And if you said no, you said then keep it in so next time you remember. Yeah. But this is normal. I don't even come. Like, why would I? This is normal. I don't know what I would do if I would be a teacher. I never had to deal with 25 years in the class. But then we had a little recess. Then we went back for another 2 hours. Then we had lunch, and then we were able to play outside for an hour, for 45 minutes, and then went back to classroom from 3 to 5. And when I was 12, we finished at 6, right? But then we came home for an hour and went back for evening studies.
Masmidam.
Wow, I didn't remember the name. You are.
How
good.
long are you?
Masmidam is probably another 2 hours, and we'll be home by 10. And you be waiting for the bus 6 after mikvah. So mikvah is a spiritual bath that kids over the age of 13 would go every day. They're in the synagogues.
Was in the premises of the.
No, they were in synagogue, in shul, and then you would go because we didn't take showers at home. We took them in shul. And then we would wait for the bus 6:15, and then the same thing the next day. And then yeshiva katana, which is like lower high school, that's what we would do until I was 16. I did that.
Wait, I'm confused. You're going to the ritual bath 6 a.m. So you're taking the bus. It's still dark outside.
I walked to shul first. So we actually lived on Seven Springs Road. I don't know if you know where that is. It's outside of the town. It was right next to. And by the way,
you lived in private houses.
Yes, we had a little private house. I would have to walk to shul to use the mikveh every morning. So that's like a 15-20 minute walk in the dark. I liked that. It was through the woods, actually, little shortcuts. And by the way, shortcuts, they're in people's backyards, right?
You're
These
essentially
days-
crossing through people's
yeah, people's properties.
properties.
And this was normal back then, and the people knew, right? So even today, just try to walk behind my property, use it as a shortcut, like get off my land, you know? And back then, these people were so nice. Shortcuts. What are people gonna do? Go to shul? So they're shortcuts. You walk behind people. Even my father lives in Chestnut. Somebody built a shortcut in his backyard with skits because there's like wetland. So somebody literally built a shortcut in his backyard, and they're fine with it because that's what you do.
I wanted to tell you this story because I think only a person from KJ can get it. Okay, so the truth was that I lived in a frum neighborhood and I didn't want to park my car on Shabbos in my driveway. So I parked it in someone else's driveway, which seemed to me to be the most rational thing to do.
Right.
Because in Monroe, there's
Right.
no sense of my driveway, your driveway.
Right. Oh, you're saying this was completely normal back then.
It was completely normal to me that if I need to drop my car somewhere,
You put it in the nearest driveway.
put it in someone's driveway. And it's Friday night, and I go home, I get ready to read this book, and I'm in pajamas, and there's like banging on my door. I'm living in this basement apartment, and I open the door, and there are two huge cops. Someone had called the cops, and they're like, your car is in a private driveway.
Right. Which growing up, this was all normal.
It
Yeah,
was-
you could
it
park
was-
somewhere.
It was such a different sense of
Right. There's such a sense of
property.
community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go back to talking about your education.
Yeah.
So which years did you learn English and for how much time?
So English was not a big priority growing up. I feel like it was taught because government's requiring to teach it. We had English for 3 years probably when I was 9, 10, and 11. My English teacher didn't know the difference between an A and an E.
Wow.
He's like this Hasidic guy, and it was only like the last hour of the day between like 4 and 5 for like 3 years. And-
Special teacher came?
Yeah, special teacher.
But a Hasidic guy.
Yes, Hasidic guy. I'm a special teacher just for that, which was, by the way, ironic because, we were exhausted after a whole day.
Yeah.
And this guy just woke up 4 in the afternoon, coming to teach us a whole new class. We're studying English now. So it's kind of always friction. That hour wasn't as serious as the rest of the day because it's just English, it's not important. And then some math. I have good memories from it because it was always fun. English classes were always fun because during the day it was like super religious and very serious. And English classes were fun and exciting, and math, we had books, and of course, half of the book was crossed out. If there was any figure, I don't even think only females, any figure was crossed out with a black, and we were trying to see if we can get the ink off, which probably you have that experience too, because there's stuff they take out for the girls as well, but not as radical as they did for the boys. And then it was done. When I was 11, I was able to read the ingredients on a bottle of milk.
Really?
Yeah. I was able to read basic English, very basic. Probably would not be able to put through a whole
What even
sentence.
goes into a bottle of milk?
Milk, but and that's why I was able to read it, probably. No, but you know what I mean. Simple math. My pronunciation was probably bad. My grammar was probably horrible. My sisters would make fun of me because they spoke much better English. Once I was like in high school in yeshiva in Queens, I went to Queens. Then I got a sensa, it's called. I think those little players, sensa. And then we listened to radio a bit, but I figured it out. It wasn't that difficult to learn English. And by the way, I do business on WhatsApp, and all my classmates were on WhatsApp. Everybody speaks a pretty good English. Is it as good as you can give a speech to the public? Probably not, but it's pretty good to be in business. A lot of these guys employ people these days, and they write emails, and they figure it out. And now with AI even, English is the least of their problems, I'll tell you that. So
Interesting.
yeah, secular
Would you-
education was basically zero. I can't even say it was 1%. But
So how do they learn English? How do so many Hasidic men end up being
you
business owners?
You go into business and you kind of have to. How they end up being business owners?
Not business owners, but businessmen.
So business owners are super simple because they don't have an education. They kind of have to succeed. They get thrown into the workforce so early without any preparation, and they have a wife immediately and kids. And when you have to figure something out, I just want to elaborate on that. When we talk about education, that there is no education, there is so much education. It's just not pinpointed at a certain subject. There is, sexual education, right, which is a big subject. There is sexual education.
Being in the Hasidic.
It's sexual education that was intentionally, even though we can maybe disagree, but the sexual education was intentionally created this way that it's not something they're going to talk about. It's not something they're going to put a focus on. It's something that they're going to shame, which, by the way, I spoke to my mom, and these days they kind of do it differently. But there is so much education between the lines that prepares you to be a grown-up. Is it education? Oh, when you do this, this happens, you do this. No, but it's kind of like a curriculum, right, that was built throughout the years to get you to be adult Hasidic men.
Yeah.
Is it an education that you can be a doctor? Absolutely not. But it's a pretty good education to be successful and have 10 kids, make it in the system, get a job, pay your bills. They educate you for that pretty well. How do I know? Because 90% of the people do it. I wasn't educated to be a broker. I wasn't educated to be a photographer, but I was educated to be kind to people. I was educated to do prices. I was educated to bargain. I was educated. I never stole money from somebody. I got this education. Yeah. Did I get education to be a professor? No, absolutely not. I mean, my classmates that have 5 kids, they work hard. Yes, they work their asses off, right? But somehow they figured it out.
The expression necessity breeds invention.
Exactly, yeah.
You are forced to become very innovative. I think with videos like Tyler Oliveira's video where he talks about how no one works, which is not true, of course.
Which is not even not true. It's just a state of reply. Like 90% of people work.
Yeah, yeah.
You come to people that barely speak English, especially these Koila guys. They really don't speak English. They don't need to. They never have to engage with the outside world. You try to ask them questions, and then this guy starts talking about Zionism. Like, this is such a big subject, Zionism, by the way, we can discuss,
Yeah, no, we're not going to talk about Zionism.
No, we should.
I want to talk about other things, though. I really want to talk about something you touched on, which is sexual
education, right?
Yeah, which interests me because it's another example of where the genders are so different. Like, I didn't go to school from Fatux to Masmidim, from to night school like you did, which sounds really difficult. I didn't learn Lushan Kodesh, which is a language that... Did you learn it as a language?
Yeah, it wasn't as a language to speak in day-to-day life, which, by the way, it's funny. I went to Thailand and there was only Israelis over there, so I picked up a Hebrew, and now I can have conversations. Some of them in school, and they only speak Hebrew, and I would be so good in Hebrew, which you're not allowed to in KJ. But yes, you learn Lashon HaKodesh as a language, but you don't learn it as a talking language. You learn it as a language that you study, and even when you study, you translate everything that you see in the book. Even though you speak Lashon HaKodesh, which is Hebrew, every line that you would study, you would then say it in Yiddish.
So like the Chemesh?
Everything gets translated in Yiddish, even up until you're 18. So Lashon HaKodesh is never a language that you talk or you even think in. It's only a thing that you study. So
how much writing did you do in general?
Oh, as a kid? Well, a lot.
Not a lot.
No, probably a lot.
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah. Interesting.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Yiddish?
Yeah. In Yiddish and in Lashon HaKodesh. And the cool thing is about also what it does to the brain, because we studied English for a bit, we studied Yiddish, and then Lashon HaKodesh. But in Yiddish, there's different alphabet, different way of writing. In Lashon
different direction.
Yeah, different direction. In Lashon HaKodesh, there's a different alphabet, because we have the biblical alphabet, and then you have the Rashi alphabet. So what it does to a kid's brain is probably fantastic, because, as a kid, like, already, 3 languages, and then you study Aramic, which is like in the Gemara, like there's a lot of different languages. So it's also very healthy for the brain, to study different languages, different alphabets, and different way of writings. And yes, again, we don't have education, but the brains are getting developed pretty good.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Right?
Yeah, it's very interesting how I think growing up with 2 languages that go in different directions probably created an elasticity in my brain.
What's elasticity?
It means it's like a stretchiness.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
More information and
But obviously, I didn't learn Lashon HaKodesh, which is like biblical Hebrew, for lack of a better translation.
Because they don't really study any Torah for girls in Monroe. It's like forbidden, which is also so interesting if you think about it.
Yeah.
The whole concept of schools for women was new. It happened in America here. In Satmar, before the war, there was no such a thing as a school system even for girls. So the whole concept was new.
Yeah.
Which is unbelievable. I feel from a religious Jewish perspective, Hasidic Jewish perspective, the turning point in history that we're at, it's pretty big.
It's fascinating, but let's go back to talking about sexual
education.
Education, or not sexual education, messaging about sexuality, gender.
Right.
For instance, how women are perceived by men, or how men are perceived by women, vice versa, both directions.
Right.
To give you an example of something I'm thinking about, I'm not particularly thinking about sex per se. When I was a young girl, I never was exposed to the concept of a beach body, of like, oh, summer is coming, prepare your beach body, because there was no such thing as going to the beach. That wasn't allowed. And there was no such thing as impressing the boys. So we had a different concept around our bodies because we were never seen by men. So I'm wondering what your idea of women was, how you would say you were educated to think about women in a world where men are taught to look down.
Right. Right. How was it? Let me think about this. So until I was probably 6, I was allowed to play with my first cousin's girls. It's probably not like this by everybody, but like when at some point, like we weren't even playing with our first cousins, the girls, only with my sisters. So probably from when I was 6 until I was 18, I didn't speak to a single female besides, I don't know, my aunt, my grandmother, maybe my first cousin if I saw her by a wedding. I didn't speak to the neighbor's daughters. I didn't speak to the neighbor's wife. There was, if you think about it, zero interaction with a female.
Except your sisters.
There is no interaction between male and female, right? We can talk about how or if women are sexualized or looked down at. I feel like no, women are not looked down at. Depends how you grew up. This technically depends on your mother or on your father. Because in school they don't talk about these concepts. They just say you have to guard your eyes. There is no education in the school system about women. They just say guard your eyes. They don't say women are evil or women are dirty or women are lower. They just say that real beauty is valued in your personality, your midot. How do you say midas?
Your character.
And your character. You know, if you're kind, outside beauty isn't the focus on, which is pretty obvious. My siblings are like my mother. She doesn't own any makeup. She's, those are not her values.
Spitzel?
She actually switched. She used to go with like a little wig. Now she goes a spitzel. My grandmother too. They both changed. There is no sexual education. They just say refrain from doing sins. You kind of have to figure out yourself what that means. There is no education what the sin is.
But boys are taught not to put their hands in their pocket.
They are told not to put their hands in their pocket, and they're told not to touch where you're not supposed to touch. So there is no education. It's your penis. Don't touch your penis. There is no education about that. You're just saying.
But you know what it is.
You are not stupid. You figure out what's going on. Back in the day, it was a very shame-based education that if you do this, you go to hell. I remember I was 7, 8 years old. I was crying at night that I'm going to hell. My mother, she claims that these days it's completely different. I hope so. And then you just don't talk to women. You don't interact with women. It's not a thing. Now, my father is a super open-minded guy. I remember when we went to Bnei Yoel and all classmates, the other rabbis called Rabbi Aaron, and everybody was like, Aaron, Foy, and they used to scribble it on buildings. And my father says, absolutely not. He's a rabbi. He's followers. You're going to say rabbi before you say his name. We were going in Bnei Yoel, and we were the only kids that we had to say rabbi, which, by the way, up until this day, I'm so thankful that he gave me this education because he taught me what respect is, right? My father taught us to leave the door open even for a lady when you walk into Walmart, when you walk in somewhere. My father taught us not to throw out garbage of the car. Did everybody get this education? Absolutely not. How do I know? Because people don't do it. My father was pretty open-minded, and no, his perspective about women was that women are tzniot. How do you say that in English? Probably modest, and we respect them, and that's why they're home. We kind of like protect them. I don't remember the exact language, but it's that women are not an object to look down at or to look up to. It's just different roles that we play. Women were never, by my parents or by the people that I know, put down in a way that they're evil, dirty, or that way. And even when people don't look at women, for us, it wasn't that you don't look at women because something wrong with them. You don't look at women because you want to guard your own eyes, because you want to have self-control. I feel like the extremism about women is not so much look down or control women. It's more of men take their sexuality and their spirituality very serious. And for them, this is something that they take serious to the point where they wouldn't even look at women. The people around me, they did look at women in normal interactions, but the teachers in school, those people were the people that looked down or didn't hand over cash.
Yeah.
But from a female perspective, this feels like, hey, why don't you treat me as a human being, right?
Not really. I mean, I come from a very different place than I think the average woman who's going to be offended if, let's say, a Hasidic man slams the door in her face. Right? He doesn't mean to slam the door in her face. He's taught that he's not allowed to have any physical contact with her, and he's therefore not going to stand there holding the door, so it closes on her face, and she's like, wow, this is so rude. I understand that it's not rude. For me, it's very different. You don't need to explain the context of this particular experience for the female side. Right. What I'm interested in is what kind of messages do you walk into life with when you have been so sheltered of the opposite sex? And I ask myself these same questions, like, how has my relationship towards men been profoundly shaped by my distance from men? And I'm curious if you can speak to it. It's really hard to speak to it because we don't know how we would be different if we had relationships with the opposite sex.
Right, absolutely. And yeah, I feel like it takes me to the next subject, which is marriage and dating. When I met my first wife, it was arranged, and there wasn't a shadchan even. There was a neighbor that kind of knew her, and I didn't live at home. I wasn't really getting along with my parents that well. And this was the first girl I met as an adult, and we were engaged the next day. I had no idea what a woman is, how they operate, what a period is, people are hormonal. Now, the whole subject, and it was a lot for me. The marriage was a lot, and without going into details, without embarrassing anybody, it didn't work, and we were divorced a couple of months later. But even that marriage, just living with a woman and getting to know women, because as soon as you're married, you interact with your sister-in-laws and with the world, and you go to work. It's a lot. Getting married right away, and you get like a bit education before, and go to classes, to marriage counseling a bit, and then how it shaped I don't know. I never grew up another way, but I feel like people are not stupid. I feel like if you are exposed to women, you kind of figure it out. Yes, it takes you some time. The same way that you get introduced, to sexuality when you're older. Like, yes, it can be intense. Some people have crazy experiences. I mean, the stuff that I heard, I don't even want to share it here. So getting introduced to sexuality and the whole subject, what would happen to me, if I grew up differently? I don't know what would. I probably would have not have been divorced twice, but at 28, probably. I would know how to pick out a second wife differently. I don't know if I would date for longer, but I would probably do different research. I'm not a big fan of dating forever, but my life would have probably been different. But my life probably would have been different in a lot of other ways that I like that it is, right? I wouldn't have as many friends as I have. I wouldn't have the business that I have. I wouldn't have the experiences that I had because I grew up. So yes, certain stuff was pretty tough, but I do have to say this, when it comes to this particular subject, for men, it's probably more comfortable because we are on the more powerful side of the sex group. Women would probably be able to give you a better perspective of what it's like growing up as a female. My sister, she's so happy growing up as a female. She is literally happy. You can say ignorance is bliss. You can say they're actually comfortable with their role.
Yeah.
But some of them, you probably have siblings, they're really happy. Some of them would probably have like horrific experiences, right?
I personally don't have an interest in necessarily making a value judgment of saying this is good or that is good. It's just really interesting to me. In some ways, we grew up in a massive experiment, in the experiment of what happens when you have almost no contact with the opposite sex.
Right.
How does that shape your sense of your own sex, of your own gender, and how do you then relate to the opposite sex? What happened for you after you got divorced?
Yeah.
How did you approach women to start dating? Were you afraid of women?
Yeah, I was very afraid of women until after my second divorce. I kind of went into my adult life as Mr. Nice Guy. Scared and chasing and kind of like pleasing and not knowing that like it's just the opposite. When when I have my own opinion and when I have my own ground, that's actually when women respect you, and that's when you feel self-respected. So yes, that's how I actually chose my second wife. And we dated for a long time, but like I was always, yes, she grew up in London and she's an amazing woman. And for me, it was ultimately I was playing 100% Mr. Nice Guy and lying to her and probably betraying her because I wasn't completely honest with what I want. And she didn't have a chance to even please me in ways because I was scared, to be honest with her, because I was scared I'm going to lose her, or my own education was that please women. By the way, this happens in the secular world too. People grow up with these different ways how they approach women in the dating world. And I wouldn't necessarily blame mine on the way I grew up. I was kind of a pussy, scared all the time, really scared to be honest, really scared to share, really scared to open up. And that's how I ended my second marriage. Ultimately, I feel like the foundation of the marriage wasn't good because of that, because I kind of wasn't a man. And outside, I look like I have my shit together and I have a business and I have friends, but at home, I didn't have a say. The last couple of months, I've actually been dating this super, super sweet girl. I'm planning on proposing soon. She doesn't know yet, but probably when this comes out, she'll know. And this time I also did it differently because I had a matchmaker, somebody that knows her and introduced us both and did a bit of research before. And she's just like the sweetest and she's so feminine and she's just the kindest human. Like she's so kind. It's actually been such a nice run, and I'm just so thankful that this is where I'm at. And I never had such an experience where I dated somebody and it's just been nice. And I remember, calling my therapist, what's going to happen? When does the shoe drop? And she was like, no, it doesn't have to. It doesn't make sense. And they're like, no, sometimes it's just nice.
Yeah. Wow. Mazel tov shoe.
Yeah, I hope so.
Sweet. I want to leave us on a uplifted note like this. I just want to ask you about your religious journey. I really wanted to wrap up on the question of your religious journey.
And then you think
one thing we didn't go into a lot was how you were taught about sex, but I don't know that it's necessary.
I think I said that there is no education. There is
no, meaning right before you got married the first time. How did you find out about sex?
No, I kind of figured it out myself. So
you didn't have Husin Rebbe?
I was working boy. I don't even think that.
Okay. Yeah. Wow, that's interesting.
I don't even think, if I did, it was that half an hour thing, but I kind of like knew everything.
Yeah. Okay. So Before we wrap up, one question I want to ask you. Obviously, you don't have a beard, or you
Right.
beard, and you have a little bit of payas, as
Right.
we now know, but
Right.
not fully payas. So, are you like, where are you on your religious journey?
I would say I'm like, that's a big question. I feel like as I became older, especially after I got divorced the first time, you don't have your space in the community that way because people are either single or married, and divorce is especially. I feel like now it's easier, but back then, 10 years ago, it was still a bit more shamed or looked upon. So I feel like my religion practice kind of went down a bit, but then I was introduced to psychedelics by my therapist actually, and I became much more spiritual. So the last couple of years have been an amazing spiritual journey. And when it comes to like religion, yes, probably I wouldn't say everything that my father did, but like there's a lot of things that I find like comfort. I'm a spiritual person. And I use religion to help me with my spirituality. So I feel like that's probably more appropriate for me.
Interesting. I feel like to me, you're a real example of how the modern young misfit society is exploring spirituality and psychedelics
Right.
and therapy speak,
Right.
something that in my day we didn't even
Right,
so
you didn't
much
have
of
that.
it.
No, I feel like I'm very lucky and fortunate like that. That my therapist introduced me to psychedelics, and whatever I did the last 5 years is just an incredible journey. And I don't trip hard these days. I would take little heart openers. So that's been an amazing journey that changed my life for who I am. I used to be very upset at my mom for certain things that happened when I was younger. And I was on psychedelics, and I was like bitching at my mom, and this doctor, his name is Dr. Larry. He has a clinic in Flatbush, I think. And he looks at me and he's on something, and he's like, "What's your mom's name?" And I'm like, "Goldie." And he starts crying. He's like, "Goldie." I'm like, "What's going on?" He's like, "She was just Goldie before she gave birth to you." And I remember it hit me. Like, I have all these pain and anger towards a woman that just gave birth. And yeah, she didn't figure it out the way I wanted to, but I probably make the same mistakes if I was her. And I remember then forgiving my mom and thanking her for giving birth to me. And I called her up the next day and I cried my brains out, my heart out. And I have to say this, she's been through her spiritual journey and her emotional growth. And, the same way that I put in the work, they put in the work. And it's just been an incredible relationship.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet. Thank you so much for sharing. I did bring you a souvenir.
Oh, what is it? Let me see. Is it a black and white?
It's not. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, what is it?
That would have been nice. I just figured I'll give you something because we're in Chinatown.
Oh, that's so cute.
I went shopping.
Let me open it.
Yeah.
That's so cute.
Did you find parking here?
Yeah, I found parking.
Here in Chinatown?
Yeah, no, black. Oh, I actually like mugs.
Yeah, I
This is a
was
piece of
hoping.
art.
It says good luck.
I'm gonna actually. I love art. Like, you have to see my house. Like, there's so much things. This is gonna be displayed. It's actually really cool, and I love Chinese. And
Have you been to China?
no, I've been to Hong Kong.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've been to
For work?
Taiwan. I've been to not Taiwan. I've been to Thailand, and I've been to Hong Kong now.
Wow,
It's
lucky.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's actually really classy.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thought I'd give you a souvenir.
I can make Kiddush on it too.
I think it's kosher,
Go, sure.
but you have to recite Kiddush in Chinese if you do it.
Oh yeah. Okay. I don't know how to do that yet.
No, you'll learn. If you have a foundation of 3 languages,
Yeah. I can probably
nothing's the problem
another
from there.
language.
Yeah.
Well, it was so nice talking to you, and I hope
Yeah.
you have good content. And I love your stuff.
I
You
appreciate that.
And,
I want to tell you, I'm thinking of going to the Lag Boima thing
in Monroe.
in Monroe. and
Oh,
I'm
I've never been.
So nervous. You've never
I've
been?
never been
I've also never been.
we were Benayo, so we never went.
Oh,
I actually
it
would
wasn't
want
a
to go
thing
to.
when I
No,
was-
but it's so many people. I would love to see that.
yeah.
Go. Why don't you go? You look
I'm-
great. Why don't you go?
I'm terrified.
Of whom?
I don't know. People are so offended when you have a camera.
Oh, you want to go with the camera? No, it's like Boomer. A lot of people come with cameras. You're not going to be the only one.
You're a
I'm
camera person.
Yeah, I don't do video, but I have an event like Boomer. Actually, it's the girl that I'm dating. It's her birthday actually. So I'm hosting a birthday party in my house.
Right. But it's Monday night. That is. Yeah, but you have to be rested.
It's Monday night.
Monday night is that look, I think.
Oh, that's what I want to propose. So
Nice.
yeah,
Listen, it's gonna be better things.
yeah, hopefully.
Betty-
But go,
Betty.
definitely go. They'll probably welcome you, and there's a lot of cameras out there, and there's a lot of outsiders that come, so you should be fine.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I'll report back. Thank you so much.